What's up, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of Trey for Three. On this episode, I'm reviewing another week of NFL action, this time coming from week 5. Let's get right into it. Now, y'all know I usually start with my boys, the Baltimore Ravens, but because we played on Sunday Night Football and we didn't lose, I'm going to be holding on to that one until the end of the video. We'll talk about that one towards the end. So we'll get into it, starting with the San Francisco 49ers, who got a victory at Carolina, winning 37-15 over the Panthers. Jimmy G had a better game than he did last week, finishing 18 for 30, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Baker Mayfield, on the other hand, went 20 of 36, 215 yards, no touchdown, 1 interception, and got injured in the game with a high ankle sprain and will not be playing in their Week 6 matchup. The biggest news coming out of that game was for the Carolina Panthers. Their head coach of the past 2.5 seasons, Matt Rule, has been fired. After only winning what I believe was 11 games over that span, the Panthers are ready to move on. The Panthers, now 1-4, are going to be heading to LA to face the Rams, who are 2-3, in their first game without Matt Rule at the helm. The 49ers, who are now 3-2, are going to be heading to Atlanta to play the 2-3 Atlanta Falcons. On to the next one. The Houston Texans are winless no more. They got themselves their first win of the season in Jacksonville against the Jaguars, the team who they seem to be the kryptonite of. They have now won 9 straight games against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Definitely a back-to-earth game for the Jaguars. But Davis Mills of the Texans was not wholly responsible at all, really, for that one. He finished the day 16 of 24, 140 pass yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Not even couldn't call it a distinguishable game, but Trevor Lawrence played even worse. He went 25 of 47, so completed nearly half of his throws for 286 yards, no touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Houston is riding that first win of the season into the bye week. They're one of the first 4 teams to have a bye this season. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, now at 2-3, are going to be traveling to face the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. The Pittsburgh Steelers got themselves embarrassed on their trip to Buffalo, New York, when they played the Buffalo Bills and lost by a score of 38-3. It could have been worse, though. The Bills did let off the gas in late third quarter. But Josh Allen had himself a game. 20 completions on 31 attempts for 424 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. The run game for the Pittsburgh Steelers was still non-existent. That's a struggle that they've been continuing to have at the beginning of this season. The offensive line is still a very good part of the reason why they are struggling like that. But Najee Harris has played his part in it as well with lackluster performances. Speaking so, Kenny Pickett had himself a better game than he did in his debut for his first start, but still not that great of a game for him. 52 pass attempts, 34 completions on him, 327 yards, only 1 interception thrown this week versus the 3 that he threw in one half of action last week, but no touchdowns to accompany it. The Bills, who are now 4-1, are going to be traveling to Kansas City to play that 4-1 squad in a potential Game of the Week matchup this week. And then Pittsburgh, who are now 1-4, are going to be hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady in Pittsburgh in their matchup this coming week. And arguably the worst game of the week, the one that started it all off, the Indianapolis Colts won 12-9 in Denver versus the Broncos on Thursday Night Football. The Broncos are continuing to play in ugly games. This one, their 3rd loss of the season. The game consisted of 12 punts, 4 interceptions, 25 failed third down conversions, 6 fumbles, none of which were recovered by the defense, and 7 field goals. For Russell Wilson, it was a flashback to that Super Bowl loss to the Patriots when he failed to convert on 4th and goal to potentially win the game, not just in regulation, but in overtime as well. He had 2 different 4th down attempts where they tried to go ahead and seal the deal and couldn't either time. So the struggles continue for Russ. He has yet to earn that big paycheck that he got. He went 21 of 39, 274 yards, no touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Brutal game for him. Matt Ryan went 0 for 2 on the touchdown-interception ratio as well, though, going 26 of 41 for 251 yards. Indy, like I said, is going to be hosting the Jaguars next, and Denver is going to be traveling to L.A. to play the Chargers on Monday Night Football. The Giants and the Packers played in the second London game of the season, and the Giants surprisingly came out of that one with a win. They are now 4-1 on the year after winning 27-22 against Rodgers and the Packers. It was another good game for Saquon. He had 106 total yards and 1 touchdown. Daniel Jones only had 6 incompletions on 27 pass attempts for 217 yards, though he didn't register neither a touchdown nor an interception. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, went 25 of 39 for 222 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, but it was not enough, especially in the end where they fell short. The 4-1 Giants are going to be facing the 3-2 Baltimore Ravens at home this coming week, and the Packers are going to be playing host to the 3-2 Jets when they travel to Green Bay. An interesting game, to say the least. The Chargers came out of Cleveland with a 30-28 victory over the Cleveland Browns. The Browns were up 14-3 at the end of the first quarter, but ultimately at the end of the game, they fell short after analytics almost lost the Chargers the game, where they decided to go for it on 4th and goal and were unable to convert. But the Browns got the ball back and decided that they were undoubtedly still the Browns. Jay Herbo, that's Justin Herbert, he finished with 22 of 34, 228 yards and 1 touchdown. Jacoby Brissett played similarly to him at 21 for 34, 230 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The Browns are going to be playing host to the 2-3 Patriots next, and the Chargers, like I said, are at home versus the Broncos on Monday Night Football. The Bears traveled to Minnesota and fell to the Vikings by a score of 29-22. The Vikings are now 4-1 on the year, but they kind of feel like the most vulnerable and least impressive 4-1 team after the New York Giants, in my opinion. Kirk Cousins on the day went 32 of 41 for 296 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Justin Fields had himself probably the best game of his young career, though it didn't amount to much in a loss, but he went 15 of 21, 208 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a career-high 118.8 passer rating. The Bears are going to be hosting the Commanders next on Thursday Night Football, a game which at this point has already happened, and I'm not going to speak on here because of the quality of that game. But the Vikings are going to be heading to Miami to play the 3-2 Miami Dolphins, who are on a 2-game losing streak and are set to play another game without their starting quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. The Detroit Lions, who were the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL going into last week, were shut out on the road in New England against the New England Patriots by a score of 29-0. Patriots D gave them fits, and Goff had his worst game of the season. He went 19 of 35, 229 yards, no touchdown, 1 interception. And then Bailey Zappi got his first start for the New England Patriots with the injuries to Mac Jones and Brian Hoyer. He went in his first start, 17 of 21, 188 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The Lions are going to be doing a lot of reflecting and soul-searching on this bye week that they're on this week. They're one of the 4 teams to be a part of the first bye week of the season. For a team that was averaging above 30 points per game, they're going to have to figure out how they weren't able to score any in this last game. And then they also need to figure out how they're to stop their defense from letting up the most points of any defense in the NFL as well. So we'll see how the Lions come out of that break. But the Patriots are not on a bye and are going to be traveling to Cleveland to play those 2-3 Cleveland Browns. The Seattle Seahawks lost their game in New Orleans, one of the more entertaining games of the week, surprisingly. They lost that game by a score of 39-32. Second straight start for Andy Dalton in replacement of Jameis Winston, who's injured. Taysom Hill, though, probably stole the show with his game-breaking talents and final stat line. It was another solid game for Geno Smith, but he couldn't seal the deal in the fourth quarter. He ended up finishing 16 of 25, 268 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, but couldn't get that last one when it mattered most. Dalton, on the other hand, went 16 of 24 for 187, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and the Saints are definitely going to be hoping for more out of him since he has officially been announced to be starting in their Week 6 matchup, again playing relief for Jameis Winston, who was injured. In that matchup, they're going to be playing against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are coming off a loss of their own. Who dat versus who they. Both teams 2-3. It'll be interesting to see who comes out of that one with a victory. The Seattle Seahawks, on the other hand, are playing their division rival Arizona, who is also 2-3 on the season. That game is held in Seattle, where they're playing host to the Cards. The New York Jets got perhaps their signature highlight win of this early season, though it wasn't against a QB1. They did win against the Miami Dolphins in East Rutherford by a score of 40-17. Second straight loss for Miami without Tua, like I said earlier. In this game, though, they also lost their QB2, Teddy Bridgewater, who went down early with an apparent head injury. Skylar Thompson stepped in relief effort and finished 19 of 33, 165 pass yards, no touchdown, 1 interception. There was no receiving touchdowns by either team. Zach Wilson finished 14 of 21, 210 yards. Like I said, no touchdowns, but no interceptions either. The real highlight for the Jets, though, were the 5 rushing touchdowns. Not for the Jets. 5 rushing touchdowns for the Jets in that game. Nearly 200 total yards for the rookie Breece Hall, finished with 197 to be exact. And the Jets are now tied for second in division with the current tiebreaker over Miami, whom they are tied with. The Dolphins are going to be hosting the Vikings next, like I said, the 4-1 Minnesota Vikings. And the Jets are traveling to Green Bay to play those 3-2 Green Bay Packers. Tampa Tom and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers survived a scare against the Atlanta Falcons after leading the game 21-0 at the end of the third quarter. They were ultimately shut out in the fourth quarter and had to rely on their defense to stymie the wound and stop the Atlanta Falcons when it matters most, which they were able to do. They ultimately won that game by a score of 21-15. With the Falcons' fourth quarter comeback falling short. But Tampa's defense has been showing some signs of weakness over the last 2 weeks, not just this fourth quarter collapse that they had, but also the multitude of points that Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs were able to put up on them last week in Sunday Night Football. So that might be something to watch out for. Marcus Mariota finished the day 14 of 25, 147 pass yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Brady also went 1 touchdown, no interceptions, but on 52 pass attempts with 35 completions and 351 pass yards. So solid game for the GOAT. The Bucs at 3-3 are going to be traveling to Pittsburgh to play the 1-4. At 3-2 are going to be traveling to Pittsburgh to play the 1-4 Pittsburgh Steelers, like I said. And the Falcons are staying at home versus the 3-2 San Francisco 49ers. Titans and Commanders played one in D.C., where the Commanders fell short to the Titans by a score of 21-17. The Commanders are becoming masters of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Both teams were held scoreless in the fourth quarter, and it wasn't until Carson Wentz and the Commanders were driving for a potential game-winning touchdown on their final drive where David Long intercepted Carson Wentz in the red zone to end the game. Wentz finished the day outside of that interception with 25 completions on 38 attempts for 359 yards and 2 touchdowns. But like I said, there was an interception at the end that put quite the sour note on a pretty solid day for Carson Wentz. Ryan Tannehill on the other side went 15 of 25 for 181 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and was sacked 5 times. But ultimately, they got the win. The Commanders, 1-4, are going to be traveling to Chicago on Thursday Night Football. Like I said earlier, that game has already occurred. And the Titans are one of the 4 teams who are on a bye week in Week 6. The Dallas Cowboys and their backup quarterback, Cooper Rush, who is playing in relief for the injured Dak Prescott, have gotten themselves their 4th straight victory. They now sit at 4-1 after a 22-10 victory over the Los Angeles Rams in L.A. Another unexpected W for Cooper Rush. This one behind the back of the defense. He finished 10 of 16, 102 yards passing, no touchdown, no interception. Nothing to write home to mom about except for the fact that he's still undefeated as a starting quarterback. The Matt Stafford and the Rams had a better offensive output, but it didn't ultimately result in points on the board. Stafford finished 28 of 42, 308 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The Rams fall to 2-3 on the year, and their next one is going to be at home against a flailing 1-4 Panthers team as they hope to right the ship. The Cowboys are in a big-time Sunday Night Football matchup this week in Philadelphia against those undefeated Eagles. Speaking of the Eagles, they traveled to Arizona and hung on late to stay undefeated in a 20-17 win over the Arizona Cardinals. Jalen Hurts finished the day 26 of 36, 239 pass yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. No interceptions, no passing touchdowns. Kyler Murray, on the other hand, went 28 of 42 for 250 pass yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The Cards at 2-3 are on the road next in that divisional matchup that I mentioned earlier against the Seattle Seahawks. And like I just said, the Eagles are playing host to the 4-1 Cowboys in a big-time Sunday Night Football matchup. On Monday Night Football, the Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs played in a game that was honestly a bit more entertaining late than I was expecting it to be when the game kicked off. The Kansas City Chiefs ultimately won that game in a 1-point victory by the score of 30-29. The Raiders came this close to winning once again, but couldn't figure out how to guard Travis Kelce, who finished the day with 4 receiving touchdowns on 7 receptions on 8 targets for only 24 yards. But those 4 touchdowns were quite the difference maker. Patrick Mahomes finished on the day 29 of 43, 292 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. No interceptions. Derek Carr had a solid game, but the guys that shout out Devontae Adams, who had 124 yards and 2 touchdowns on only 3 receptions, and Josh Jacobs, who had 21 carries for 154 yards on the ground and a touchdown of his own. The Chiefs are hosting Buffalo in a potential Game of the Week matchup as both are 4-1 heading into that 4 o'clock game, and the Raiders are the last of the 4 teams on the bye week in Week 6. And last, but most certainly not least, the Baltimore Ravens played in a Sunday Night Football matchup against the defending Super Bowl runner-ups, the Cincinnati Bengals, in which they came out of that game with a win, their first of the season at home, 19-17. Baltimore's defense finally plays 4 quarters of solid football. It was another close one, but with a different result this time. The 5-game losing streak at home is over. The Bengals' pass game couldn't really get anything going, even though their run game finally got off its ass. There was 1 pass of 20 air yards or more for Joe Burrow in this game. He finished 24 of 35 for 217 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He did play without T. Higgins for most of the game, who's been dealing with an injury. Lamar Jackson, on the other hand, went 19 of 32 for 174 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception of his own. Not the shiniest of games for Lamar Jackson, but he shined when it mattered with the final drive, needing to drive down the field and set up the go-ahead field goal. He did exactly that. Many of the plays, which he did so with his feet, not his arm, which is notable. The Ravens are now in sole possession of first place in the AFC North. And their next game, like I said, is going to be on the road against the 4-1 Giants in East Rutherford this week. And the Bengals at 2-3 are staying on the road as they travel to New Orleans to play that 2-3 New Orleans Saints squad. Real quick, I want to give some predictions for my Week 6 games. Not doing an in-depth analysis, just some quick predictions. Haven't really done predictions up until this point besides some slight commentary as I'm reviewing the games. But now I think I'm going to be adding the next week's predictions onto the reviews as well. So review and prediction videos from now on. Let's get into it for Week 6. I think that the San Francisco 49ers are going to get a win on the road against the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Cleveland Browns get a win at home versus the Pats. I think the Packers get a win at home versus the Jets. The Jags win on the road at Indy. The Vikings win on the road in Miami. The Bengals win on the road in New Orleans. Ravens get the win in New York against the Giants. The Bucs win at Pittsburgh. The Rams win at home versus the Panthers. The Seahawks get the win at home versus the Cardinals. The Bills get the win on the road against the Chiefs. The Eagles stay undefeated at home against Dallas Cowboys. And the Chargers win on Monday Night Football against the Denver Broncos. You can check in with me after Week 6 ends and see exactly how well I did with these predictions. But that's all I got for you guys today. I appreciate you guys checking out the video. Don't forget to like the video, comment, and subscribe in the comment section. Tell me what you thought about the content. Give me your predictions on this upcoming slate of games. Give me your thoughts on the last week of games that we just saw. And your thoughts on anything else that you'd like to hear and see on the channel. Don't forget, you can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon at Trey43. Patreon is where my supporters can support me the most. You're able to subscribe and pay a monthly fee to be a subscriber. It comes with benefits, but the fees that you pay go directly to me, where it directly funds the channel. That money will only ever be spent on the channel, but it is how I'll be able to grow and expand this channel as I continue to produce and make more content. So again, follow me on there if you feel so inclined. I appreciate all the love and support, and I'll see you guys next time on Trey for 3.